guys, welcome to Found Flicks. After languishing in development hell for years and several delays, we finally got our first glimpse of the Stephen King adaptation The Dark Tower in a new trailer that came out today. I did like the trailer for the most part, but they lost a lot of the Western stylings of the source material. And the action scenes glimpsed seems like they're going a lot more for a high-budget blockbuster franchise than I might have expected in the first place. Regardless, I'm still really excited by a lot of what we see in the trailer. There's plenty to analyze and theorize on, as well as a few Easter eggs to some of Stephen King's earlier literary works. So let's get started and break down the Dark Tower trailer. The trailer begins with our first glimpse of Midworld, an alternate dimension and home to the Gunslinger that now lies in ruins. All that remains are a few small towns across a landscape littered with varieties of monsters and magic. Down below the remains of a castle, we see a small settlement has popped up. This could be one of several locations in the books, but it's hard to say for sure as the movie is pulling from more than the first novel. It's possibly Al Ghul Siento, where psychic breakers are being forced by the villainous Man in Black to destroy the Dark Tower. But let me know what you guys think. Next we meet the Gunslinger Roland, played by the awesome Idris Elba. Roland is the last of the gunslingers who were knights that protected the Midworld. They are skilled marksmen, capable of some crazy impressive gun skills. But due to events set in motion by the Man in Black, the gunslingers fell, leading to the destruction of the entire Midworld. And it's hunting down the Man in Black that drives the Gunslinger story. Speaking of the Man in Black, we first meet the antagonist and main villain of the series in a very dramatically foggy shot, played by Matthew McConaughey. The Man in Black is a huge part of Stephen King's books, also appearing as a villain in The Stand and Eye of the Dragon. He has many names, but here is called Walter. He's a powerful warlock, intending to destroy the Dark Tower and both of our worlds in the process. Roland uses his signature 6-shooters, firing at a crazy-looking CG monster. It's hard to make out what it is, but it definitely isn't friendly. There's a huge variety of creatures in the series, and this is only the first we've seen of many. Then we cut to a young boy, Jake Chambers, awoken by an earthquake. But since he's in New York, that doesn't really make any sense. So it has to be related to Walter and his plan to take down the Dark Tower. It's through Jake's perspective that the story will unfold as he is brought into the interdimensional war between Walter and the Gunslinger. We see via drawings that Jake has been dreaming of the tower, as well as other strange locations and a ghostly looking figure, the Man in Black. A bit later, we see an entire wall of Jake's drawings depicting more of the Midworld with 2 moons, and a brief glimpse of a few other of the varieties of creatures that inhabit the dimension. Jake is with a psychiatrist discussing his dreams, and the psychiatrist more or less thinks that Jake is nuts. But right on cue, another earthquake arrives, signaling that something else very real is going on. As the rumbling continues, a picture of the Overlook Hotel is seen on the doctor's desk. The Overlook Hotel, of course, being the location of Stephen King's classic, The Shining. Jake tracks down a house he drew from his visions, known as the House on Dutch Hill. It's in the 3rd book that Jake visits here, but the movie is picking pieces from multiple books. And in the house is a doorway as it was in the novels, but it's more like a portal in the movie. This doorway connects our world and the Midworld. Through this, Jake can travel between our dimensions, seeing the things from his drawings now in reality. Jake enters the doorway, finding himself in Midworld, seeing the same 2 moons in the sky from his drawings. Now Jake meets the Gunslinger, who gets a drop on him asking who he is. But Jake knows who the Gunslinger is, showing him a picture Jake had drawn depicting him. Roland trusts him now, and the two join together to hunt down the Man in Black. Here the Dark Tower looks like it's about to be destroyed, but considering, as Roland says, if that happens both of their worlds will be destroyed, it's probably not going to happen in the first movie of the series. Chances are this is a vision of Jake's of a potential future where evil is victorious. In another shot of the tower falling, we see the beams surrounding it in a spoke formation, and these beams all support the tower. Each beam connects to a different world and a different animal guardian, but I doubt they will get into any of that in the first movie or maybe ever. We see what looks like the same red clouds of the tower now overwhelming Jake. It seems like this is the movie's incarnation of the Thinny, which is a weak point in the fabric between dimensions. It also seems like the same monster from earlier came through the Thinny, but because of how the trailer is cut, we don't see it actually emerge from the clouds, so it's hard to be sure. Then we see these creatures who are possibly the Taheen. In the book, they have the heads of animals and can appear human once they don disguises. They are raiding a Midworld village, tearing the place apart and killing everyone in their paths. It's theorized that the village being attacked is Manny Village, a community whose religious beliefs empower them to be able to travel between worlds. As they explore Midworld, Jake walks right into another Stephen King literary reference, the remains of Pennywise's very own amusement park. Pennywise, of course, being the main villain from It. You knew that already. We see the remains of a sign and a creepy-ass clown statue holding balloons. It's now in disrepair, but I bet it was a heck of a lot of fun back in the day. It's also crazy and worth mentioning that it actually has a cameo in a later Dark Tower book. Hopefully they can figure out how to make that happen in a future sequel. It would be nuts! Jake convinces Roland to come back to our dimension, which doesn't actually happen until the second book, but whatever. They activate a doorway, possibly the previously seen one, and they head to New York, where we know Walter is causing havoc. Walter runs his finger along graffiti on a wall that reads, "All hail the Crimson King." Walter works for the Crimson King, which like him is another villain featured throughout King's work. The Crimson King is a figure of pure malevolent evil that wants to bring about chaos to destroy the world and rebuild reality in his image. Geez, who does it nowadays? Too bad for the Crimson King's big plans, as he is currently imprisoned in the Dark Tower. And it's possible that the clouds I referenced earlier as being the Thinny could actually be representing the Crimson King instead. The Dutch Hill house comes to life attacking Jake, as it's not actually a house at all, but a demon disguised as a house to protect the gate between dimensions. It isn't on our protagonist's sides and wants to actively keep Jake away from Roland. We see this location a few times in the trailer, and based on the design makes sense that it's the Dixie Pig, a restaurant in New York where it seems like much of the movie will take place. And the guys that are opening fire are most likely the Taheen, now in their human disguises. Walter is threatening Roland about Jake, telling him everyone who walks with him is killed. But what's interesting is the orb he is holding in his hand. It appears to be a wizard glass, specifically the Black 13, an object that grants the user different kinds of powers. There's 13 total magical stone, known as Merlin's Rainbow, one for each of the 12 beams connected to the tower and the Dark Tower itself. We see some of Roland's gun skills on display in a few action shots in some overly slick visuals, including pistol firing slow motion, and Roland even leaping through the air like he's in Fast and Furious or something. Over the rest of the trailer, Roland narrates a shortened version of the gunslinger mantra heard prominently in the novels, as we see him training Jake in marksmanship. Their relationship develops into a more father-son direction over the course of the story, and we are seeing the beginning foundations of that here. Then, in what we must assume is a flashback, Roland interacts with his father Stephen. We will at least see some of the gunslinger's story before his world fell, and also before Stephen's death. We see some more action in a pretty silly scene as Walter tosses an axe at Roland, who ducks under it, sliding along the floor. Roland fires out the window overhead, and Walter responds with telekinetic powers, freezing the glass before it reaches him. It seems rather than the more mental conflict between the two in the books, the movie is going to have some good old-fashioned blockbuster-style physical fights between the two. Ah well, subtlety be damned. Then we're back in what might be the Manny village, and Jake is taken by one of the raiders. Roland chooses not to follow them, but only to listen as they run. Without even looking, Roland fires a shot from his magical gun, taking out the abductor with a headshot and saving Jake. Pretty sweet. And that's the end of the trailer, but I'm sure we'll see a lot more before the movie comes out this August. Alright guys, that'll do it for my Dark Tower trailer breakdown. I'm sure I didn't catch everything, so if there's anything else that you guys spied, let me know. What did you think about the Dark Tower trailer? Are you bothered by all the changes from the books? Let me know down in the comments below. Thanks for watching Found Flicks. See you next time.